one of the ways I started that was by saying, look, if I do this and I achieve this, can I then ask for that?
Right.
And that way, you're not just asking for money or time up front. You're saying, I'm going to do something smaller. I want to demonstrate I have the ability to come up with an idea, deliver, execute, and achieve beyond what would have been achieved otherwise, and then use that as the reason to execute or ask for other things.
That spirit of innovation or experimentation, again, young staff, new staff, I think they are by and large, they feel as though they can't do that. They almost have to be given permission to do that. And this course, hopefully at the end, breaks that myth. And the grumpy VP that is the teacher, is actually at the end the one who's desperate for new ways.
Greetings, everyone. Welcome to another episode of CRMprov. I'm your host, Mickey Baines. We're excited to be back. We've been off for 2 weeks, but I came across a post on LinkedIn, and when I saw the post, it was a little video clip, and the video will grab me these days, and I watched it, and it's of our guest, David Burge, talking about a course he has coming up with NACYAC. It's the first I've seen you on LinkedIn in a while, Burge. It's the first time. It's been a bit.
Yeah, it's not my network of choice, but the older I get, the more I participate. That's for sure.
Perfect. So everyone, let me introduce you to David Burge, Vice President. Is it Senior Vice President?
Just a normal garden variety Vice President.
For me, the Senior Vice President for Mason, they say Vice President for Enrollment Management at George Mason University. Burge, you've been there for 9 years, going on, as we discussed, 49 years, it feels like. Or at least to me, are you the longest serving vice president there at this point with your tenure?
Mason actually has, let's see, I believe there is one other that has a longer tenure than I have. Her name is Rose Pasquarello, my best friend on campus. She, I believe, has been a vice president going on 11 years.
11. So that's a good tenure at a single institution. Love to see that continuity. Burge, you've got your course coming up with NACYAC starting in next week or the week after?
It's very soon. It's within a week or two. That's right.
Yep. And the course is, and this is what grabbed me, it's about using data or being data-driven as an early in your career admissions professional.
Right. Yeah, it takes at its core, it's attempting to influence culture. So within the admissions, recruitment, enrollment space, we're seeking to cultivate a generation of leaders that can be competent in the language of data, that can communicate up, communicate sideways, communicate down, all using charts, tables, graphs and evidence-based decision making in order to achieve enrollment goals.
And this is, I think you said, around the 7th offering of the course, which I think is really good. That's 7 over just a couple of years span. So it shows great interest. How long does it last? About a month?
Correct. Yeah, we do 2 synchronous sessions. The first session with me, where I kind of give everybody the rules of engagement and we create a common language, right? I mean, everybody has a different definition of what constitutes an enrollment funnel. Everybody has a different configuration of their office. But in the end, everyone who's taking the class has some level of accountability for achieving an enrollment objective in a specific area. Then they take 2 to 3 weeks and they consume asynchronous content, a series of videos and a series of projects. And then we come back together at the end. In essence, we kind of learn from one another. It's project-based. So they will have completed a project, they will have discussed it in small groups, and then we do a large group simulated admissions activity to help seal the deal.
And I know, as we talked earlier, you mentioned that you give them an assignment, they have to go collect some data. And sometimes the data you're asking them to collect, which is, you're not asking them to go, into the depths of the institutional core for data. This is, as in a recruitment person or a mission counselor type of role, data that they would be using to help establish their own kind of goals for themselves and help them set their own kind of metrics so they can assess their performance. You've had some folks have had trouble getting that data for themselves occasionally.
Yeah, there's two problems that I think we encounter after the first session. That if learners can overcome those challenges as part of the class, it's going to pay dividends over the course of their time in the career, in their career. The first is, as you point out, access to legacy admissions data, and it's not rocket science. It's how many applied, how many were admitted, how many paid a deposit, and how many enrolled. Break that out by subunit. Maybe it's high school, maybe it's community college, maybe it's state, maybe it's university. And that's the number one bit of feedback I get after the first session. Like, Burge, what do I do? How do I find this? And I always have to coach people. You have to find the right person to ask, and you have to be vigilant in that. The second thing, and this one shocked me when I first taught the class, the number of admissions representatives who operate without a goal, meaning they are not assigned a target of how many students they're supposed to enroll. It's either more or it's just, do the best you can. And I tell them, it's like your number one objective, after you find this data, is to ask your boss to give you a goal. And if not, make one up and you operate with a goal.
Yes.
And otherwise, none of what we're about to do is going to make much sense.
And maybe your length of moving up and beyond that institution in this field is restricted. If you don't know how to operate towards, that goal, this is, to succeed today. I don't know how you do it without a goal, but I would agree. We do occasionally come around folks who don't have a goal or haven't gotten to the point of setting goals, at least for specific staff members. Maybe there's a larger goal. And I will say we've had a conversation recently with the pretty well-known and prestigious institution. When we asked for the strategic enrollment plan, they're like, we do not have one.
Right.
Which I didn't get it. I don't know. We didn't even don't have one. They didn't. And it's maybe more common than we realize, but not necessarily healthy.
No, agreed. And I, it's also a matter of who participates in that goal development and goal attainment. So in these cases of these students who don't operate with the goals in their job, I actually have a lot of faith that their dean knows the goal, their VP,
yes.
Their CFO sure as heck knows the goal.
Yes.
And we talk about that. That's actually one of the first things that we introduce in the course is to say, what is the role of an admissions office and a territory manager within the university? Here's how a chief financial officer
yes.
sees you. Here is how student development professionals see you. Here is how you contribute to the mission of your university. Now, you've got to kind of own all three of those things, right? You can't
yes.
just make decisions based on your bottom line. You can't just make decisions on what feels good from a student development point of view. And you can't just chase the mission without keeping the lights on, right? So it is interesting. It's the first time I think some of the folks in the course have thought about themselves as agents of the university writ large. They see themselves as agents of the recruitment effort and of their admissions operation. But I think that's my hope is anyway, that for some of them, light bulbs come on about this as a career.
Yes. And what does it mean beyond the direct one-to-one relationship you have to build with the prospective student? Now that you say that, I just reflect back. It's been a while since I was a direct practitioner, but I remember in my last institution when I took over, I was working with non-traditional students, but when I took over the program, yes, we had a new student enrollment goal that I had to develop. But it was the first time I'd worked with the CFO who said, here's the revenue goal. Fantastic. But no one to that point had converted that number to measure, well, how many new students does that really mean? And
Wow.
does my number match his number? Because those were done independently before. And then also and that number was a whole tuition number, not just new students. So I had to take his number, look at the current number of students, and this was an ongoing year-round program, and how many students do we have? How many courses will each of them take in the next year? How much revenue does that have? What's the difference between his number and the current student number? There's the left, and I have to generate that revenue with new student enrollment. How many courses will they take over the year? And just that mapping that out was maybe one of the most beneficial experiences I could have in terms of really saying, okay, because this is really where it hit me in small institution. Once I knew that, then I knew every student beyond that, whether it's an extra student that was already there that we retained that may have dropped, or any additional new person we brought in, I knew how much more revenue that generated beyond the budget, so that when I made an ask for additional dollars or new dollars, I could say, this is what I'm going to get from it in students and revenue, so they could see that. And once I won that argument and then proved this is what I'm going to do, and this is how much extra dollars I spent, how much extra dollars I generated beyond that, then I had a success record. And every other time I asked for money, I got it.
That's actually like that story will ring so well within this course, because I do something similar where I lead them through an exercise that I did with my board of visitors in 2017, which had to do with a data, first of all, communicating in the language of data, which is sort of a phrase I reiterate over and over and over in the course, and then articulate in very concrete terms specific costs and specific return on investment. Because, it's very easy when you don't have budget accountability, as territory managers very rarely do,
Yes.
right? Like they're kind of they're the caboose in this chain. By the time you've done that work, it then trickles down, and then someone
Yes.
actually has to go and do that work. But they don't have that visibility, and they have to. I maintain they have to create it, and I think, and this could be generational, but this also could just be young professional, feeling that sense of agency and ownership. They don't feel that yet.
Yep.
And I think the course tries to empower them to say, like, it's okay for you outside of your leadership to kind of break down the business in a way that makes sense, as long as you're accountable to achieving a goal.
Correct.
And you're talking about your activities in the context of that goal.
And when it comes to, in my example, I was talking about budgeting for dollars or asking dollars. And a lot of times at entry level, they don't have dollars, but they might have time. How do I think about budgeting the time in a different way to experiment, try other avenues to help exceed those goals, whether I set them myself or someone else sets them for me?
That's right. I tell a story in the class of when I was at the University of Kansas back, circa 2000, and I was assigned Chicago, and I was assigned a set of, and at the time it was not, hey, Burge, go to Chicago. It was, Burge, go to Chicago, and here's the 27 things that you're going to be doing. And I had no agency to modify my time. And so one of the first things I did after doing that for a year is I said, okay, here's this one fair, and we've now done this fair for 3 years. Here's all of the high schools that attended that fair, and we have enrolled 0 students from any of these high schools over the course of these last 3 years. I don't want to go to this fair anymore. I want to engage in other activities, and here's the savings that we can realize from not doing that fair. And here's, and of course, at the time, I'm not sure I understood the phrase opportunity cost. Now I absolutely understand that phrase. And so here's how we can invest that time better. You're absolutely right. I also try to empower the learners in the course to say, it's okay, and you should advocate for financial resources, but you have to take ownership over providing, evidence that investment produced value.
Yes.
Full stop.
And I think one of the ways I started that was by saying, look, if I do this and I achieve this, can I then ask for that?
Right.
And that way, you're not just asking for money or time up front. You're saying, I'm going to do something smaller. I want to demonstrate I have the ability to come up with an idea, deliver, execute, and achieve beyond what would have been achieved otherwise, and then use that as the reason to execute or ask for other things. Doesn't mean I'm not saying, will you say yes to it? I'm just saying, can I ask for this if I do these other things?
Exactly right. And that spirit of innovation or experimentation, again, young staff, new staff, I think they are by and large, they feel as though they can't do that. They almost have to be given permission to do that. And this course, hopefully at the end, breaks that myth. And the grumpy VP that is the teacher, is actually at the end the one who's desperate for new ways of doing things.
Yes.
I really want, in fact, need, staff who are managing territories to feel as though they can manage up feedback, and I think it's my obligation to then have to be able to assess and signal when I think that innovation is the right play, and support it in the way that I can, and if I can't, then I take on a charge to then try to go and find that resource or that time for the staffer to do the things that make the difference.
Well, it sounds like a wonderful course. I want to audit.
Please do.
I want to audit the course. So you've been doing this for a couple of years. This is, I think you said, 7th or 8th time you're offering it. We know to register it, I can just go to NACAC's website
Right.
to register. There's a fee. I'm sure there's some small fee involved.
That's right.
With it.
That's right.
Perfect.
And I'll tell you, what we're finding too is a lot of full teams are joining together.
Oh, wow.
Right. So someone, perhaps an associate director or even a dean with a small staff will have everybody get together. They there's not one project they work on. They each individually work on projects the same project and kind of present and learn from one another. I would say, if you don't mind letting me do
Please.
a little plug here, is that, this is a course, was an experiment. It's been wildly successful as defined by interest, and we've had cohorts of more than 100 many times. NACAC's rolling off 3 additional courses. The one is a sequel to my course. It's actually called Data Informed Program Management. So instead of thinking of a territory, think of telecounseling, think of campus visits, think of ambassadors. Pick a program. Also one on budgeting, and one on staff development. The idea here is that we want to use examples from the existing job. Like, I come to these courses because I need to do the job I have right now better.
Yes.
And forecast towards the job I want in the future.
Fantastic. Well, that becomes a true professional development curriculum, right? To help guide you through that, prepare you for the next position.
That's the hope. And I think it's good for employers too, right? Like, I think of as the staff that I have, and I encourage all of the people who work near me to pursue that degree, right? Like, so whatever that is, if you're just sitting on an undergrad, let's get you a master's degree. The PhD or EDD is a much bigger investment, but many do that, and I support that. But really, this is skill development. This is what is the skill that I need right now to be effective in the job I have, and that'll propel me forward.
The exercises you've described, looking at it from the CM perspective, seeing how folks leverage technology to support engagement and understanding who's in your pipeline, who's ready for engagement, their interest level, and how you leverage the data there to give you context, to help you understand what's happening with each individual student as well as your entire pipeline of students, is really important. So I commend you. Thank you for offering this for folks. It's really needed in our space, especially if you're in an organization that doesn't have a goal. Learn this profession, learn what it means to have a goal, how to set boundaries around it, and tactics and align tactics to those to achieve those metrics. So thank you for offering that. Thank you for joining me on the episode. It's always great to have a long-time professional who has the insight that you have and understanding of the high-level strategy piece, the low-level on-the-ground piece of what it takes to actually still recruit today. So thanks for joining me, Burge.
Well, thanks, Mickey. It's always a pleasure to be with you. You're one of my all-time faves. So appreciate you having and giving me the space here.
Anytime. Everyone, thank you for listening, for watching to another episode of CRMprov. Look forward to having you back with us next time. Until then, we'll see you.